Always.
Well, today we're taking a look at a real game changer.
Ooh. Okay, which one?
Cubism. It really shook things up back in the day.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, can you imagine? Art was all about, making things look real on the canvas.
Right, like a window to the world.
Exactly. And then bam, Cubism. It just threw all those rules out the window.
Yeah, it's like those Renaissance paintings. You know, the ones where it feels like you could just step right in?
Totally.
And Cubism was like, we're going to do something completely different.
Instead of that window, it was like turning the canvas into like an abstract playground.
With shapes and ideas.
Exactly.
So instead of trying to like copy reality,
Right.
Cubism was more about breaking it down.
Yeah.
Deconstructing objects and figures into these like geometric planes.
Exactly. And then putting those planes back together, but in this abstract way.
And emphasizing the flatness of the canvas rather than trying to,
Yeah.
create depth.
Yeah.
You know what's funny, though? It's called Cubism.
Yeah.
But, like, perfect cubes weren't really the main thing, especially at the beginning.
That's true. It was more about that fragmentation, breaking things down and then putting them back together.
Like a puzzle.
Yeah. And that's what leads us to the two main phases of Cubism.
Oh, right. Analytical and synthetic.
Yes.
So break those down for us.
Okay, so analytical Cubism, that was the early phase, and it was really about dissecting the subject, analyzing it.
Like from all angles.
Yes, like a visual puzzle.
Okay, I'm with you.
Think of Brock's Mendora.
Okay.
It's a great example of analytical Cubism. You see the planes, the muted colors.
Like a symphony?
Yes, a visual symphony.
It's like he took the instrument apart, looked at every detail, and then put it back together on the canvas.
Exactly.
But in this, like, fragmented way.
Yeah. And then you have synthetic Cubism, which came a bit later. It's still about geometric shapes, but it's more loose, brighter colors, simpler shapes.
And collage.
Yes.
Collage.
Picasso, right.
Yeah, Picasso was a master of this. I mean, think about his bottle of view mark, glass, guitar, and newspaper.
Iconic.
He literally used bits of newspaper and wallpaper.
Great.
Even chair caning.
He was saying art can be made out of anything.
Right. I mean, collage today
Totally.
owes a huge debt to those Cubist pioneers.
Yeah.
It's amazing how those experiments back then still influence art today.
It really is.
But Cubism wasn't just a one-man show.
No.
More like a team sport.
Uh-huh. Okay, I like that.
You had two main teams.
You mean the gallery cubists and the salon cubists?
Exactly. You've got Picasso and Braque
The gallery cubists.
working kind of in isolation, pushing boundaries.
Right.
And then you had this larger group,
Salon cubists.
like Jane Metzinger, Albert Gleizes, Fernand Léger, Juan Gris.
The whole crew.
Who were these salon cubists?
Well, salon refers to those official art exhibitions in Paris.
Right.
They were like the place to be if you were an artist.
So these salon cubists, they brought Cubism to the masses.
Yeah. They were crucial in making it mainstream.
It's like you had the innovators behind the scenes, and then you had these other artists saying, hey, this is important, the world needs to see this.
And they did.
And from there, Cubism's influence just exploded. Went way beyond just painting.
Oh, yeah, but that's a story for next time. Cubism went beyond painting. You wouldn't believe it. It influenced all kinds of art forms.
Yeah, like buildings and books, even fashion. It's wild how a style that started on canvas ended up influencing what people wore.
I know. It's pretty cool. Let's start with architecture.
Okay.
So you've got those geometric forms, fragmented planes, multiple perspectives. It's not hard to see how those ideas translated into 3D space.
You're right. It's like those paintings jumped off the canvas.
Exactly. And there are some amazing examples, like Czech Cubist architecture.
Okay.
In Prague, there's this building called the House of the Black Madonna.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
It's got these angular crystalline forms, like straight out of a Braque painting.
Wow. And then there's La Maison Cubiste.
Oh, yeah. That model house.
Designed by Raymond Duchampion, right?
Yeah, and furnished by André Maire.
And it was shown in 1912.
Yeah, fully furnished to show that Cubism could be part of everyday life.
Imagine living in a house where the walls felt like they were shifting and changing.
Crazy, right? It's like those everyday objects in Picasso's collages became a whole house.
So from buildings, Cubism went to literature.
That one is a bit more subtle, but just as interesting. Think of Gertrude Stein.
Oh, Gertrude Stein. She was amazing. Didn't she have that salon in Paris?
She did. All the big artists and writers hung out there.
I know.
And her writing, the repetition, the fragmented structures that focus on a moment in time, it all reflects Cubist principles.
Like he was painting with words.
Yes. Deconstructing language, reassembling it in this abstract, multidimensional way.
It's funny. The early 1900s were such a time of turmoil. World War I was about to start.
Right.
And when I look at Cubist art, it reflects that feeling of fragmentation and anxiety, like the world was changing.
Interesting. You think those Cubist artists were trying to make sense of the chaos?
Maybe. Like they were showing us a broken mirror, forcing us to see the complexity of the world. And then fashion.
Of course. Designers like Paul Poiret, the Calosseurs,
I love their designs.
they loved geometric shapes, overlapping layers, no more corsets. They wanted fluid forms echoing those Cubist paintings.
Wow. So Cubism influenced buildings, books, art, clothes, everything.
It really did.
But were all the Cubist artists on the same page? Or were there disagreements?
That's a great question. Like any art movement, Cubism had debates and controversies. It wasn't just one single style. It had so many different approaches and interpretations.
It would tell me more about those different groups. We talked about the gallery cubists and the salon cubists, but were there other factions too?
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing how those different artists with their different personalities all came together
I know, but they were all united by this idea.
of breaking free from the old rules.
Exactly. And that's what makes Cubism such a turning point. It wasn't just a new style, it was a whole new way of thinking about art.
And it opened the door for so many other movements.
Oh, yeah. Abstract art, surrealism, constructivism, they all owe something to Cubism. Who knows what modern art would look like without it?
Yeah, it's incredible to think about. But here's a question I've been thinking about. Cubism was so tied to its time, the early 1900s.
Right.
Is it still relevant today? Does it still have something to say to us?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is yes. Those Cubist ideas, like multiple perspectives, fragmentation, abstraction, they feel even more relevant now.
I mean, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with information, different viewpoints.
Exactly.
It's like we're living in a Cubist collage.
It's true. And just like Cubist artists challenged viewers to see things in new ways, maybe their work can help us deal with the complexity of our world today.
Maybe it can teach us to embrace ambiguity, to question what we think we know, to find meaning in the chaos.
Exactly. Because Cubism wasn't just about how things looked. It was about expanding how we see the world, challenging our perceptions, making us think more critically.
It's a reminder that there's always more to see, that reality is complex, that beauty can be found in unexpected places. So the next time you see a Cubist painting,
Don't just walk by.
right, take a closer look, explore it, let it challenge you. You never know what you might discover.
Well said.
And on that note, we're wrapping up for today. But we'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of art. So until then, keep exploring and stay curious.
See you then.